Hey, we got a bit of a quick video today. I'm going to show you, if you guys don't know how to make a tool to check push rod length. You need the tool first, so there is one tool you're going to have to buy, which is your adjustable push rod. What you also need is, if your kit doesn't come with it, because some kits, or if you buy a kit, it'll come with it. If you don't get a kit and you just get the tool itself, like I just showed you, if you have old lifters sitting around that are going to be about the same as what you're going to be using, so these are the lifters from this car, just an old set. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to weld the hydraulic lifter to create it to become a solid lifter. So I'm going to take the body from in here and weld it to the outside on a couple spots, turning this into a solid lifter. Now, the reason I'm doing that is because we're only going to be checking push rod length. So we don't want it to compress the body of the hydraulic lifter. We want it to stay at its top, so as high up as it can be, and not compress down when we're checking push rod length, to make sure that our push rod isn't too long or too short. Mostly too long, because you got to equate for the amount of collapse in the lifter. So we need to make a solid lifter out of the old lifters. Now you can buy them. I'm going to make them because I don't want to spend money and I got junk lifters sitting around. What I need is a MIG welder, and that's it. Let's get into it, let's get going. But I got these lifters marked out, pretty sure, because I had one that was internally collapsed. So what I'm going to look for is the one that I have in here that was internally collapsed. So I'm pretty sure I marked it. If not, in the end they're all the same and I'm never going to reuse them, so it doesn't really matter, but I like to try and use the bad one that I found. That way I'm using the bad lifters and not doing that to the good ones, because if I need it, in worst case, I can still reuse a lifter if I had a lifter failure. So I went through and looked at them. I thought I put like a black paint pen on the one that I suspected was bad. Like the tips are fine, but I had a plunger issue, I believe, on them, so that means the plunger was collapsing even with pressure. What I'm going to do is, because I know one was collapsed, I'm going to just take a push rod and I'm going to put some pressure on it, feel which one collapses. That one's strong. So there's going to be one or two in here that are going to collapse with very minimal effort. That's fine. Nope, that one's good also. I think this one moved. Not. Bugger. Usually there was one that I could compress really easily. No, that one either. So since they all seem to be working perfectly fine right now, I'm just going to look for the next one that is the most damaged, and so far this one's got some damage to it, and I actually believe that right there, you can see there's a little piece missing from that one. I believe that might have been what caused the damage in my oil pump. Okay, so we're going to use these 4 lifters. I'm going to make 4 tools with them. So I'm going to do is I'm just going to start by spraying a little bit of brake clean inside of them. kind of submerge them almost all the way in brake clean. So we'll just do that and have them submerged just like that. We've had the lifters sitting like that for probably 5 or 10 minutes now. My air compressor on, and what we're going to do is we're going to take a couple of them, maybe just one for now, start with one of them, and we're going to try and blow out all the brake clean out of it, just to get any remnants of that out so we can try and get as clean of a weld as possible. Again, they don't need to be perfect welds, but I would rather have a nice weld versus a crappy weld, just so it has less chance of breaking, because I don't want any parts ending up inside the motor. That's why I want to have a good weld, no porosity, nothing that can break. If it does break and a piece of the weld goes inside the motor, that's going to circulate through your motor and trash your bearings and destroy it. So I want to have as good of a weld as possible. So we can see actually some of the oil is coming out the side. That's fine. I'd rather it come out the side oiler right here than come out the top. Good enough. That should be nice and clean. And I'm actually going to put it, I know you can't see, but I'm going to set it in my vise just right here. There we go. I got it cleaned. Inside of here is clean. I have it sitting up so no oil can get around it right now. You guys can't see. That's currently what I'm at. What I'll do is I'll lay down a little bit of a pass on a piece of scrap just to see what I think heat wise. That's just the first little pass I did. We got some good penetration on it. There we go. We can see we got good heat through it. I'm going to take the ground clamp it right to the vice grips, and we're going to just straight go for it. We go right on here. On that. On that. On that. There we go. There's one. There we go. You can see it's burning the oil out of it. But yeah, there we go. Got it done. Let me just put a little. That there is good enough. There's your tool. So these are welded lifters now. So it can't compress the center part. And we only need it basically to open and close the valves. So that should be more than strong enough and do everything we need to do. So, but yeah, now we can have our pushrod, the pushrod length tester sit inside, and it can't compress that center plunger anymore when we go to check. Perfectly fine. Only thing I'd do is when you use them, put a little bit of oil on the tip and on the camshaft, and then there you go. You can check your pushrod length, and you can. I made two. The reason why I have two is because you need to have it on both sides. So one on intake, one on exhaust. Sometimes you're going to have different lengths depending on your rocker arm. Some engines have, like let's say 1.5 on the intake and a 1.6 on the exhaust. So you need to make sure you have the right you're going to have different rocker arm lengths per rocker arm on some engines. So you always want to do it in 2s, and that's also how you're going to attach a dog bone mount. So your dog bone mount is going to go in between here and here on these roller lifters. So you're going to have 2 hooked up at a time to run on your camshaft, because if not, your lifter will rotate around in the bore and not sit correctly. So you have to do 2s, and you might as well do it that way. And you can also check, like let's say a factory push rod. You can do a factory one on the exhaust, let's say, and then you have this tool on the intake. So you have one here and one here, and you can get lengths, and then you can kind of gauge your length between this one and this one. So stock and how long you think you need it, and you can gauge how long you need to set your push rods too. So it gives you an idea on both sides. So here's a stock one, and here's that, if they both run the same push rod length on intake and exhaust. Again, some engines don't. Some run a different length on intake, and some run a different length on exhaust. So it's very dependent on your motor. I needed to make these tools anyways, because I was debating before I sent it to machine shop, putting a cylinder head on, putting one piston in it, rotating the motor over, and just seeing what piston to valve clearance is. So let's crank back in. One singular head back on, put those 2 lifters in with the cam, just rotated it a couple times over, and then I can also clay the cylinders that way too. So essentially you just take some Play-Doh and you put it on top of the piston. So the reason for doing that is you put over top of the valve reliefs to see how much clearance you have in your valve reliefs. Granted, I have new pistons, so the valve reliefs are going to be completely different, so I really don't need to do it, but regardless, I need to do it for when I check piston to valve clearance with the motor being rebuilt. So with the new pistons, the head's gone through and whatnot, whatever I do, I need to have check my piston to valve clearance again, so I needed to do this regardless. But it's good to also have these. These will come in handy over a while, however many times you change cams. So it's cheaper than going out and buying them on Summit for like whatever they are. They're only like 20 bucks, but this is free. This is free. I had a welder. I had my argon. You know, this cost me absolutely nothing besides a little bit of brake clean to clean up the parts. I'm going to see you guys in the next video. Take it easy.